It's time to look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. With me in the studio is strategy consultant and public affairs analyst Dikbo Oyewole. Dikbo, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Great. And we have journalist and media consultant Ifekayode Akimbode joining me on Skype. Ifekayode, good morning. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Dikbo.
Great.
Good to see you guys this morning.
Great. All right, let's begin with a Blueprint newspaper now. Blueprint says fuel price hike, new electricity tariff have come to stay. President Buhari is quoted as saying this: fuel subsidy gobs 10.4 trillion naira in 14 years. Electricity tariffs 1.7 trillion naira. Those are some of the riders there. Reactions to 162 per litre mischievous, unnecessary. The Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, is saying that and says borrowing to subsidize irresponsible. And you're pushing Nigerians to the wall. The PDP is saying this. Okay, all that on the front page of the Blueprint newspaper. Now, national economy is next. After spending 10 trillion naira in 13 years, federal government insists on petrol subsidy removal and chides discos rules supplementing electricity tariffs shortfalls. Okay. This is one of the strong topics across the country right now. Everyone is talking about. Moving now to News Direct. News Direct says global oil price, no fuel subsidy in revised 2020 budget. President Buhari is revealing this. And then Daily Times. How Nigeria can avoid fraudulent contract deals. And that's by the Attorney General of the Federation, Malami, is issuing some tips there, how Nigeria can avoid fraudulent contract deals. Okay, from there, let's go to the Leadership newspaper that says a fuel subsidy gobbled 10.4 trillion naira in 14 years. Federal government is revealing this to Nigerians. It says 1.7 trillion naira spent on the electricity tariff, accuses opposition of playing politics with price adjustment, and knocks discos over poor power supply. It says petrol price in Nigeria lowest in Africa. I remember the Minister of Information saying that. A hike is painful but necessary. Timing mere coincidence. President Buhari is quoted as saying this. All right, that's a Leadership newspaper. Now, the Daily Trust, which is the last one we're looking at now, is talking about the same thing. Fuel subsidy removal irreversible. Electricity tariff hike necessary. That's President Buhari saying that. And some of the writers there say that petrol subsidy guzzles 2.16 trillion naira under APC. Oil cheapest in Nigeria, Lai Mohammed, and federal government's policies, anti-masses, Afenifere and CSOs are saying this. Okay, let's stand on this now to discuss this. This is the topic most of the papers today are having, because this is a strong issue, national issue. All right, Dikbo, I know you've been following this development.
Yes.
Now, that decision to balance between the removal of subsidy that so many people have complained that the subsidy is benefiting only a few, but if you remove it, the prices will go up, and then the average Nigerian who fall below a certain bracket finds it difficult to cope. Just talk to us about how challenging it is to make that kind of a decision at this time.
Okay, well, for me, timing is everything.
Okay.
Because, I mean, in terms of anything...
So is the timing right or wrong?
The timing is wrong. Okay?
Wrong?
Yes, timing
Whoa.
is wrong. Is the decision right? Yes. Is the timing right? It isn't. Because, I mean, we're in an era where people are still struggling to know how they'll survive in the COVID era. A lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people are being paid half their salaries. A lot of people aren't even being paid anything.
But others will say this is the opportunity, because the COVID had brought the opportunity for these to be removed one way or the other.
So the question is opportunity for who? Okay. For the government to remove it, or for the people to be able to afford it? Because we need to understand that when implementing government policies, you're not implementing it for people on Mars, okay? You're implementing it for people within your borders. They are the ones that will be directly affected by it. So I think that for any reasonable government and any responsible government, whenever you're implementing your policies, it should be centered around the people. Now, it isn't always about how the people will necessarily react to it, but it's about how it will impact their lives. Now, the question is, how has this been able to impact the lives of Nigerians? Has it been positive or has it been negative? If you look at a lot of the indicators, it has been negative. We have a huge population of people that live under $1 a day, and now we're saying that the fuel price has gone up. At the same time, the electricity tariff has also gone up, and then you're telling me it's not coincidental. Okay. I think that they're just trying to use the same news cycle to drag both issues together, and I think for me it is quite insensitive.
Okay, we hear on one of the papers today, the president is saying that it's mere coincidence. The timing is coincidence, talking about the hike in tariff, electricity tariff, and as well as the fuel. But let me bring Ife Kayode into all of this right now. Ife Kayode, I know you've been following this development. A lot of people will say this is a difficult decision that government has to take. But we remember in 2012, the previous government, our previous administration, wanted to make this move, and we saw the reaction from Nigerians, a lot of reaction that led to protests in many parts of the country. This is the same thing, or even more, but what is the difference between that time and now?
Well, Mike, good morning once again. I think the problem with an average Nigerian is that the critical situation that an average Nigerian has found itself is so that they have become so lethargic, they can no longer protest. Hunger is ravaging the land, the poverty is endemic, and virtually everybody is living under the poverty line. In 2012, the coalition of political forces trying to take over the government were able to galvanize themselves through the support of the civil society organizations and through the leading light of the CSOs. They were able to challenge the government of Jonathan, and they were able to rally the Nigerian citizens, to protest. But right now, I think the leading opposition party are very comfortable with doing just press releases and with no action to back it up. I saw the fact that the Nigerian people are tired. Mike, a government should represent collective aspiration of the mass of the people. Whatever, like my brother and the house said, the decision may be right, but the timing is very, very wrong. A lot of people lost their job during the COVID era. Unfortunately, the political party that is the leading one, which is the PDP, has not been able to do beyond rhetorics and demagogy or press releases consistently. They have not been able to rally around the critical mass of the people to challenge the government on this policy, to me, that I would describe as anti-masses. Look, the leading light of those struggle, people are still expecting a Wole Soyinka, who is almost 90, a Femi Falana, who is going towards 70, to lead. What about the young Nigerian people? What about the critical civil society organization? What about the labor movement? Where is the version of NANS in all of these things? Nobody is talking. We're not saying the government should not take decisions that in the overall interest will make things work, because I don't even have anybody in government now, because the oil prices is falling down, the economy is in serious situation, and the government cannot continue to sustain the economy with the problem that is going on. But for goodness sake, they need to re-strategize, they need to rethink, they need to plan and allow some cushioning effect for this COVID thing to go down a bit before announcing such measures. But unfortunately, in 2012, the people were ready, were mobilized by the opposition party then, and they were able to challenge Jonathan's government to revert to status quo. But today, nothing is moving, no organized civil society organization, no labor movement, no student movement, nothing is challenging. So this government is so lucky that every decision that they make, people will just rant and talk on social media and nothing will happen. I hope that it will not get to a point where people will react beyond understanding. That is my standpoint.
Okay. All right. People talk on social media. All right. Ife Kayode, thank you. Now, Dikpo, let me come back. Now, the point is, a lot of people are saying, are waiting. In fact, we've heard government officials say that the commencement of the operation of Dangote refineries would change the dynamics, where fuel or oil becomes a very golden commodity that it'll be available, and then all of this back and forth will reduce. Is that what you see? We also hear that the BUA is preparing to come up with a new refinery in Akwa Ibom State.
Yes, to produce 200,000 barrels per day. Yes, so interestingly, that is the theoretical assumption that we make. But like someone pointed out a few days ago that I read, that interestingly, if you also look back and see how we do things in Nigeria historically, you would agree with me that even items manufactured here locally are usually more expensive than the ones we import. But that being said, it will take a lot, and I mean a lot, to see that the prices are crashed when the Dangote refinery then kicks up and the Buhari refinery as well kicks off. But I'm not quite optimistic that the prices will be as favorable as it is being marketed, because I don't see that being realistic. In the end, you have to understand that this is a business, okay? And a lot of money has been
crude
sunk
oil is an
into it.
international commodity.
Yes, it is. It is. So you also need to understand it is an independent business and profit has to be made. So if the refinery starts tomorrow and then he's saying that, okay, he is not selling his at 161, he's selling at 158. What do we do about it? So yes, so that is the issue. But for me, I'm not quite optimistic about it. I believe that when that time comes, we will be pleasantly surprised. I hope we will be pleasantly surprised, but definitely we will be surprised.
All right. If I can, some Nigerians and analysts have been saying that the best way to make sure the refineries, the 4 refineries Nigeria has to work, because there has been a move to sell them, it was reversed, and they're not working. There's been so much money on turnaround maintenance over the years. That they should be listed in the stock exchange for Nigerians to have a buy-in, and then all the unions will have a buy-in, and then they can function. What do you make of that?
Dipo, Mike, you recall that during the Jonathan era, when this present government, were campaigning to come into government, they actually promised to probe the subsidy scandal. Till today, what have you made of the scandal? How many people have been jailed? We don't have any result. Look, the critical mass of Nigerian people will have to ask a question. Either they take it to the stock exchange or not, is not even beyond the reach of the ordinary people. So what I think the government should do is that government should be sincere. Any government that is responsible enough will know that oil is an essential commodity for the Nigerian people. I don't believe that the government should list it to the stock exchange, because it's going to end up in private hands and cronies of government. Rather, the government should take responsibility. They should make the 4 refineries to work at maximum capacity. They can encourage private ownership like Dangote and the rest, but the one owned by government should be properly, made to function, so that the burden will not be too much on the mass of the people. So whether they take it to the stock exchange or not, you and I know that within the Nigerian context, it's going to end up in the hands of the friends of the government. And that does not make any difference to the Nigerian people. That's my position.
All right. Ifekade Akimbodi, thank you so much for your time on the program. We really appreciate you. Right. Dikwa, before I let you go now, on one of the headlines as well, the Minister of Information was saying that the price of crude oil in Nigeria, price of petrol in Nigeria, is the lowest amongst other African countries. If you travel around to a great extent, one of the papers did a breakdown of some of the prices across West African region, and actually Nigerian prices is the lowest. But then others will say, of course, it's Nigeria only that produces fuel in West Africa.
Yes, that is true. And interestingly, on this particular matter, I engaged one of the president's social media aides on Twitter. And then he posted something around Saudi Arabia increasing the fuel price at their end. And the question I asked him was, for people, really, aside from the fact that the numbers are clear for us to see, it isn't always about the amount. It's about the earning power. Can people afford it? Are we getting value for money? Okay, if we're saying other nations are increasing their VAT, they're increasing fuel prices, what are they getting? Can we then compare facilities?
Exactly.
Can people in those countries go to primary healthcare centers and be confident of coming back alive? So for people, for Nigerians, it is about value for money. It isn't just about increasing the prices and increasing taxes, increasing all of that. It is about value for money. What are we getting? We've increased the electricity tariffs. What are we getting for it? Are we paying for more darkness? In the alternative, we need to use fuel to power our generators. You've increased both prices. Is that sustainable for a people that you have a huge population in poverty? So that is the question.
Let's look at some of the headlines today. It's quite similar or bordering on same issue, but we'll start here with the Blueprint newspaper. It says, fuel price hike, new electricity tariff have come to stay, and that's coming from the president, Muhammadu Buhari. And the writer says, fuel subsidy gobs 10.4 trillion naira in 14 years. Electricity tariffs, 1.7 trillion naira. Reactions to 162 naira per litre, mischievous, unnecessary. And that's a statement from the Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed. Says, borrowing to subsidize irresponsible. You are pushing Nigerians to the wall, and that's from PDP. Next is the national economy. After spending 10 trillion naira in 13 years, FG insists on petrol subsidy removal, chides discos, rules supplementing electricity tariffs shortfalls. We have next News Direct. It says global oil price, no fuel subsidy is revised in a 2020 budget. That's from the President Buhari. We have Daily Times as well. It says how Nigerian can avoid fraudulent contract deals. This moves away from the full subsidy removal to contract deals. And away from the Daily Times, we have Leadership newspaper. The headline says, fuel subsidy gobbled 10.4 trillion naira in 14 years. And that's coming from FG. And it says 1.7 trillion spent on electricity tariff. Accuses opposition of playing politics with price adjustment. Knocks discos over poor power supply. Says petrol price in Nigeria lowest in Africa. Hike painful but necessary. Timing mere coincidence, and that's coming from President Muhammadu Buhari. And now to the Daily Trust. Fuel subsidy removal irreversible, electricity tariff hike necessary, and that's from the President Muhammadu Buhari. The writer says petrol subsidy guzzles 2.124.16 trillion naira under APC. Oil cheapest in Nigeria, Lai Mohammed. FG's policies anti-masses, and that's coming from Fenifere and CSOs. That's the much we have on the papers this morning. Like you already noticed, the headlines are pretty much the same, except for the one that talks about the contract. But we're focusing on, let's look at the forced subsidy and electricity tariff, and that's on Leadership newspaper. It did talk so much about electricity tariff and forced subsidy together. And let me bring this conversation to you, Dikbo. The government is saying that, look, at this point in time, we are battling with the impact of the coronavirus. We've had to review the 2020 budget. We've seen the dwindling oil prices. We've also seen the forest crisis. How realistic is this at this time to continue to subsidize fuel?
It isn't. However, I'll say the timing is wrong. So they're looking at it from a revenue perspective, which for me, it makes a lot of sense, okay? The same way it's affected individuals, it has also affected governments of the world, and ours isn't an exception. But that being said, it will also interest you to know that we have refineries in this country that do not do anything. They're not working, but we have billions of naira being paid in salaries to people doing nothing. How about we look at that cost? Can we say that we're going to pay them half, or maybe we make an arrangement with them? Can we say that we reduce the cost of governance if we're saying that we're broke? Because, of course, the justification for it is in terms of revenue. But that being said, long term, no. The subsidy isn't sustainable. We've always said it wasn't sustainable. But I would say that the timing is really faulty, because it shouldn't come at this time when people are still unraveling from the whole effect of the COVID era. A lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people have been paid half salaries. A lot of people aren't even getting anything. And now you're saying that back to back, the electricity tariff would be increased. And then you also have the pump price going up for fuel. I think for me it is quite insensitive. And you'll also recall that in 2012, that even the president himself, when he was a member of the opposition party, I mean, not the PDP now, but when he was campaigning to be president, he led a protest back then with a lot of people, and they were on the streets talking about these issues, and it was part of the things we talked about on the campaign trail. But somehow Now they're in government, the music has changed. So for me, I think it is quite insensitive and it is quite irresponsible.
So let's take this conversation to Ifekayode, because the timing seems to be the big issue for a lot of people. But look, people are saying, irrespective of whatever happens, this has to happen. Whether it was in 2012 or now with the coronavirus, it has to be done. What do you make of this?
Well, like I keep saying, government should be sensitive to the need of the people. The basis for people to be in leadership is to cater for the ordinary people on the streets. The burden is too much on an average Nigerian. In the last 6 months, half of Nigerian working population probably have lost their job. A lot of family hardly find it to feed. Now, most governments of the world that are also battling with the same challenge that Nigeria is battling are looking inward at creating palliative, at cushioning the effect of the pandemic on the people. No responsible government at this critical point will look for a way of also overburdening them. Just like Dick was said, naturally, no government will continue, to pay for subsidy. It is not sustainable. But the government should reduce cost of governance. We have an overburdened political appointees in government collecting money for no basis. We have an overbloated civil service. The government should look inward and reduce the cost in every areas to cushion the effect. And please, this is not the time to do whatever they are doing. When the things are a bit better, when the citizens are a bit comfortable, then the government can gradually do whatever they want to do. And
if when will that time be? We know that we're still battling with the pandemic, and we've seen the impact on the global economy. So when you say when things are a bit better, who knows when that time will be?
The time is coming, because gradually we are seeing a decline in the rate of the infection of the coronavirus pandemic. Economy is gradually opening up, schools are gradually opening up, business are picking up, and in no time, I know that things will get better. But coming just in the midst of the crisis is absolutely insensitive for any government in any part of the world to do such. And I think that the government should, as a matter of fact, sit back, reflect, look inward, and of course revert this policy. It is not sustainable, it's not good at this particular point in time, because the people are already overburdened. And I think that the government should do the needful as soon as possible.
Right, so Adikpo, talking about how overburdened people are, you have to, first of all, you have an electricity tariff hike, which means that a lot of people will be out, because it's a contract-based system where what you pay is what you get, which means that a lot of people have to depend on fuel if they can afford to pay for the electricity tariff. And now the fuel prices also, have been jacked up. What sort of structural changes would you imagine at this time to cushion the impact of this on the people?
Well, from the side of the government, I don't see them really doing anything. But for the households, I think a lot of people will have to make a lot of adjustments. I mean, if you have households where certain people have refrigerators and deep freezers, maybe they'll need to collapse everything into one of them to ensure that the power usage is as little as possible. Maybe you don't get to power all your ACs, you don't get to use your water heater all the time. So yes, I see a lot of households cutting back on a lot of things, but from the side of...
Isn't there something that, for example, the National Assembly can do? That's supposed to be the place where everyone is represented. We'll have representatives there. Isn't there something that they can do to step into this situation?
Yes, exactly. So constitutionally, they can do something about it, and the reason why I didn't say anything about it is, so far, this particular National Assembly, we haven't seen them being quite as effective as they ought to be. But also, I also say that the people also have been a bit docile, because, I mean, we have people out there who are representing us in different capacities, and we've not been able to call on them to hold them accountable and tell them that, you know what, this is what we're feeling right now. Is there anything you can do about it in the National Assembly? So yes, on the side of the people, we also have our roles to play in the business of governance. Okay, it's a contract. The people in government, they're there to serve us. We that we're being served, we also need to hold them accountable and also let them know that these are the pains we're feeling. You are there to represent us. These are our wishes, and these are the challenges we're going through. You're supposed to represent us and communicate said challenges and said issues at the House. So that's not what we're seeing right now. But for me, I'm not so comfortable, I'm not so optimistic, rather, as saying that the people in government, either in the National Assembly or in the executive, that they'll do anything about it to address these issues. So that's why I just went straight to the households and trying to see how we could get people to probably cut back on their power usage so that it could be affordable for them.
All right, Dikbo Oyewole and Ifekayode Akimbode, thanks to both of you for talking to us.
Thank you for having me.
It was welcome.